There's a moment that happens before anything goes wrong. It's quiet. Nobody names it. You get added to a thread late, almost as an afterthought, and somehow your name ends up at the top of the list. Nobody asks if you want this. Nobody explains what this actually is. But by the time the meeting ends, everyone in the room has quietly filed you under responsible, and you didn't even notice it happen. That's the problem with being set up. It doesn't look like a setup. It looks like trust. It looks like opportunity. It looks like someone finally believing in you. And by the time you realize what actually happened, the project is already failing, the timeline is already broken, and your name is already the only one attached to it. Most people don't get blindsided by one big moment. They get walked into it, one small signal at a time, for weeks. And because each individual signal feels small, a missed introduction, a vague instruction, a compliment that felt a little too convenient, nobody stops to add them up. This video is going to add them up for you. 11 signs that you are quietly being positioned to absorb a failure that was never yours to carry. Some of these will feel familiar immediately. Others will feel like nothing, until you realize you've seen the same pattern 3 times this year alone. 1. You're brought into the project late, but introduced as if you've been there from the start. You get pulled into something that's already half broken. The timeline was already tight before you arrived. The expectations were already set in meetings you weren't in. But when your manager introduces you to the rest of the team, there's no mention of when you joined or what you inherited. You're just on it now. Which means, if it fails, nobody will remember you joined in week 3 of a 4-week disaster. They'll just remember you were on it. 2. The praise arrives right before the risk does. Someone tells you how dependable you are, how much they trust your judgment, how you're the only one who can really handle this. It feels good. It's supposed to feel good. But notice the timing. The compliment shows up exactly when something difficult, vague, or politically uncomfortable is about to be handed to you. Praise that arrives right before a burden is not recognition. It's lubrication. 3. Every instruction you get is verbal, and every instruction your manager gives others somehow ends up in writing. Pay attention to how information moves around you. If your manager sends emails confirming deadlines to other people, but gives you direction through quick hallway comments, quick calls, and just go ahead and handle it, messages with no specifics, that's not casualness. That's a difference in how much your version of events is expected to matter later. 4. After group failures, the feedback session always seems to land on you specifically. A project goes wrong. Multiple people were involved. But somehow the follow-up conversation, the let's talk about what happened conversation, keeps circling back to your part. Not because your part was the largest, because your part is the easiest to isolate, the easiest to discuss without anyone else in the room feeling implicated. 5. Decisions get made in rooms you're not in, but the outcomes land in your inbox. You find out about a change after it's already been decided. Nobody asked your opinion. Nobody flagged it to you in advance. But somehow, the consequences of that decision, the new deadline, the changed scope, the missing resource, become things you're now expected to manage. You weren't part of the choice. You're just part of the cleanup. 6. When things go well, the credit gets shared. When things go badly, the blame gets specific. Listen to how success and failure get described in meetings. A win is great teamwork, everyone pulled together. A failure is, there was a breakdown in how this was handled by, and then a name, usually yours. If credit is plural and blame is singular, that's not an accident. That's a pattern that's been running long enough that nobody even notices it anymore. 7. People privately agree with you, but publicly say nothing. After a tense meeting, someone pulls you aside. That wasn't really on you. Everyone knows that. It feels like support. But watch what happens in the next meeting when the same topic comes up in front of leadership. That same person goes quiet. Private agreement that disappears in public isn't an alliance. It's a withdrawal everyone makes, the moment it might cost them something. 8. You're asked to take ownership of outcomes you have no authority to control. You're told you're responsible for the result, but you don't control the budget, the timeline, the resources, or the people whose work the result depends on. You're given the weight of the outcome without any of the levers that actually shape it. That combination, full responsibility, zero authority, isn't a stretch assignment. It's a position designed so that whatever happens, there's already someone to point to. 9. Your mistakes get remembered as a pattern. Other people's mistakes get treated as a one-time thing. Someone else misses a deadline, and it's things have just been a lot lately. You miss a deadline, even once, even for a documented reason, and somehow it becomes part of a larger conversation about your reliability, your attention to detail, your ongoing issues. The same action gets 2 different stories depending on whose name is attached to it. 10. You're the first person people come to when something breaks, even when it has nothing to do with you. Something goes wrong in a system you don't manage, a process you don't own, a department you don't work in. And somehow your name comes up early in the conversation about who can take a look at this. Not because you caused it, because you've become the person whose job, unofficially, is to be near every fire. 11. You feel a low-grade sense of dread before meetings you have no reason to be nervous about. This is the one most people dismiss because it doesn't feel like evidence. It feels like anxiety. But your body has been paying attention to a pattern longer than your conscious mind has. If you walk into review meetings, project updates, or check-ins with a quiet, persistent sense that something is going to land on you, even when you've done nothing wrong, that feeling didn't come from nowhere. It came from a long string of small experiences that taught you exactly what tends to happen in rooms like that. Now here's the part that matters more than the list itself. None of these 11 signs on their own prove anything. A late introduction could be a scheduling issue. A compliment could just be a compliment. A verbal instruction could just be how someone communicates. That's exactly why this works. Every individual piece looks too small to challenge, too small to mention, too small to be the thing. It's only when you see them together, running quietly for months, all pointing in the same direction, that the shape becomes obvious. And once you see the shape, something shifts. You stop interpreting these moments as isolated bad luck. You stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? As if the answer is something wrong with you. You start asking a different question. What does this role need from someone? And why does it keep needing it from me specifically? That question is uncomfortable because it means the problem was never really about your performance. You can be excellent, careful, early, thorough, and still end up carrying this. Competence doesn't disqualify you from this role. In some ways, it qualifies you for it. Because someone reliable is exactly what a system that doesn't want to fix itself is looking for. So what do you actually do with 11 signs? You don't panic, and you don't quit by Friday. What you do is start treating your work environment less like a place where fairness is assumed, and more like a place where clarity has to be built. deliberately, calmly, on your own terms. You start noticing when responsibility is handed to you without the authority to match it, and you ask questions before you accept it. You start putting things in writing, not dramatically, not defensively, just as a normal habit of someone who likes to keep things organized. You start noticing who disappears when the room gets uncomfortable, and you stop mistaking their private comments for protection. None of this requires conflict. None of this requires becoming someone you're not. It just requires becoming someone whose story doesn't only exist in other people's memories, someone whose timeline, whose role, and whose decisions are visible enough that they're hard to quietly rewrite. Because here's the truth underneath all 11 signs. This role isn't assigned because of who you are. It's assigned because of how easy you've made it. And the moment that stops being easy, calmly, consistently, without a single dramatic moment, the role starts looking for somewhere else to land. You don't have to make noise to stop being the answer to a question no one is willing to ask out loud. You just have to stop being the easiest one in the room to point to.